the recording is in progress. There is also a pop-up on your screen to let you know that we are recording the session. Some of you may want to use closed captioning, so please let me know if that's something that you want to use. It should be enabled, so you should be able to find it in your tools to start it. But if there's any problem or if you're running into any issues, please let me know. You should be able to see our screen with the slides. And again, I'm going to paste that a few times in the chat, so you will be able to open the slides on a separate screen if you would like, if that makes things a bit easier. As we are waiting for others to join, feel free to let us know where you're from. Where are you joining us from? What's the weather like where you are? I'm in the Greater Toronto area. I know some of our participants are coming from different parts of Ontario, so it's always good to know. Here, it's sunny and 25 today, so it's very unusual for October to have this kind of weather, but we are all enjoying it. And I can see somebody's coming. Sarah is coming from North York, so this is fantastic. Welcome to everyone. And
I'm in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Niagara-on-the-Lake. Oh my goodness, beautiful spot. Thank you, Stuart, for letting us know.
It's great outside. Yeah, just at a cafe. So if you hear other people.
No problem. Yeah. Feel free to mute yourself. But again, if you ever want to speak up, like you just did, it's fantastic. We love to have participants connecting and chatting with us. So I'm very happy to hear that you're able to have your microphone and it's working.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Jim, Sharbot Lake, 23 degrees. That's awesome. Thunder Bay. Oh, Fredericton, New Brunswick. Beautiful fall day out here. This is great. As you can see, we are working with Ontario programs, but we have participants joining us from all over Canada and sometimes beyond. So it's always great to have that sort of lens and then feedback from participants as well. It's always exciting. And then feel free to post in the chat any questions, messages, anything you feel will be helpful to participants as well. Again, different perspectives are always very welcome. Okay. And we're almost just a minute before, so I'm just going to switch to a new slide. Make sure that we start our session on time. And that will be just a quick overview of Zoom. So 3 o'clock on the spot. I know more participants will be joining us as we continue. So this session is being recorded. And I'm really glad to have everybody here. We are using Zoom platform for our session. So just a very quick reminder, if you are new to Zoom or if you are trying to do different setups with Zoom, one of the things we want to mention is that myself, our interpreters, Rebecca and Kim, are spotlighted, which basically means we usually will be at the beginning of all the videos you see. You also will see different presenters. Our guests will be try to spotlight them as they will be sharing, so they also will be on top. If you're not comfortable with having the video on, feel free to turn it off. We are trying to record in such a way that only the presenters are really showcased in our presentations, but that occasionally, sometimes the system records more than we want it to record. So I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with that. Now, if you need pin privileges for other guests or somebody else to be visible on your screen, send me a quick message, let us know, and then we'll give you the pin privileges. That's something we have to enable for you. But otherwise, everything should work fine. And then a very quick reminder that whenever you are using Zoom, if you go into a full preview, you will see an icon in the top right corner. I'm just going to quickly highlight that in red. That icon actually allows you to change the viewing of your videos. And next to it, you're going to see a bit of a line that allows you to shift and resize the window with the videos. So if you want to see more participants and less shared screen, you can just shift it to the left and right and toggle that and adjust specifically to your needs. It's always good to know because sometimes the videos are kind of tiny. So we always remind participants about that. Now, as always, we really encourage you to use the chat to send messages, to chat with us. As you can see now, there's Tracy sending messages to different participants. Tracy is my colleague from AlphaPlus, who is helping me a bit with navigation and participation here. So thank you, Tracy, for doing that. I think I also saw Guylaine and maybe even Alan, some of my other colleagues from AlphaPlus. So if you feel like that, say hello to them as well. Okay? Perfect. Quick session overview. An hour and a half for the whole thing. So we are trying to really do it quickly, efficiently, and give you as much information as possible. We'll do the introductions and a bit of overview. Then we will have our guest presenters share their stories, their experiences with AI, and then a bit of time for Q&A and wrap up. We'll just go accordingly with the flow. So we'll maybe changing a bit as we go. One thing I want to really introduce you to is our guests. So you will see that Sarah King is one of guests who is sharing, and Sarah is from Northern College. Sarah will tell you more about herself and the program she's coordinating when we get to her presentation. We are going to also have Jamie with us, who is an instructor at the Community Learning Alternatives. And you will also see Shannon and maybe a few other guests from that program as well, helping and supporting us as we go along. And the last guest today is Jessa. Jessa may not have joined us yet. I know Jessa actually is just on the way home trying to get into the system to participate and join us. As I mentioned, you also see me. My name is Monica. I work at AlphaPlus for 20 plus years. It's hard to believe, but yes, it's been a while. So I do recognize some of your faces. We have worked together, but I also want to say hello to new faces joining us. And if there's anything you need from us, I do a lot of coaching and support at AlphaPlus. My team members work with professional development, supports, and other resources that you may be looking for. So we always welcome any questions or supports you may be looking for. Tracy is here with us, and of course, Rebecca and Kim, who are our interpreters. Okay, before we jump into the actual presentation and discussing things with our guest, I just want to make sure that we do our land acknowledgement. And we would like to begin by acknowledging the indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet on a virtual platform, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each all call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge an ancestral and unceded territory of the all Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. And what you see on the screen is the Native Land website that allows you to see a lot of different treaties, languages, territories. And then we always encourage everyone to kind of take a look at that if you want to, or explore that in more detail. Now, before we get into AI discussions, I thought that it may be a good opener or really kind of warm up for all of us to think about how we interact with technology and information today. And the question I wanted to pose to all of you is really, what's the first thing you do when you don't know something? For example, where a famous actor or singer is from, what country, what city, you're looking for this kind of information. What would you do? And I'm going to ask you to put answer to that in our chat so we can see, how do you look for information? What do you do in those situations? I'm going to take a few minutes and see your responses. Perfect. Perfect. I can see a lot of you are putting in Google, and that was sort of expectation from me. And then really when we say Google, it doesn't really mean the browser. It's just our habit over the years to use a searching Google or other platforms to search for the information. So we have adapted, shifted. Many of us will look up for information about actors, singers, flowers or plants we are looking at. Any unknown names or vocabulary we are not familiar with. Very often we will Google it, as we say, but really what we mean is we will search the internet. And usually that would mean that we'll get all those search results, and then we'll kind of sift through this information to find the answers we are looking for. Sometimes it will be the very first answer you see, but sometimes we had to look for more information and kind of find different websites, open different browsers, look for Wikipedia and other things to find that information. I was curious and I wasn't sure if I saw it. I know Guylaine and Tracy put DuckDuckGo, which is a different browser if you're not familiar with that one. But did anyone say maybe that you are using Google Mini or Alexa or Siri to get this kind of information? And if you do, again, you're searching for information, and both Google or the browsers you're looking at or search engines are really trying to find the answers for you. But the Alexa, Google Mini very often will actually try to read out the answers back to you. So they will now start interacting with you, and then you can ask additional questions as you go. Now, we are getting into AI, and many of you have tried AI. That's why you're here today. But we are actually getting into something called generative AI. And generative AI actually has a meaning because generative means actually that all those systems that in the past searched for the information for us and gave us the results are actually not only doing that now, they're actually comprising the information, putting it together for us to create paragraphs, to create reports, to create information in a very different way. It actually is working behind the scenes to do more than just give you the search results. And that's a shift for many of us. As we start looking at it, exploring it, it may be overwhelming. There's so many different tools we can use. But basically, the idea behind that is that we'll ask a question, which will be a prompt. And then the search engine or this chatbot that we'll be using is going to try to give us an answer based on this information or the data it was trained on. And, it started a few years ago, but as we look at AI today, I think even our team, when we talk about it's like, okay, we are going to wait a bit more because things are changing so fast and there's so much new information that we're learning about this and exploring it every day. At the same time, it can get very overwhelming. I just listed a few quick ones that we know about in terms of chatbots that we are using. So there is OpenAI that has ChatGPT. That's the one that kind of really made a difference for us because it allowed us to go in and ask questions and prompts. But there's also Microsoft Copilot. There's Google Gemini. Before it was actually called Bard. So even vocabulary, we actually have to learn and relearn the names, whatever we are using. Adobe Firefly, which is kind of more related to images, but it's also having its momentum. There's a search bot or chatbot called Poe, which some of you, if you're using literacy resources, you may have heard of that from Literacy Link South Central. And if you're on social media, you potentially are getting messages every day about 20 or 30 new AI tools you may want to use. But it's a lot to take on. It's a lot to learn. So what I thought just quickly I want to ask you is I'm going to ask you to go to slido.com or scan the QR code you see on the screen right now. And I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind answering this question. If you have tried AI before, what are you trying? What have you used before? Feel free to just kind of select multiple options. We want to get a better idea of what you're using. So again, the easiest thing to do is use your phone to scan the QR code or in the browser, go to slido.com, put in the code, and then put the answers. And as you're putting the answers in, you're going to see our tool is actually changing the answers for us, giving us some ideas of where we are as a group, as this collective meeting today, in terms of using tools that you're exploring. Okay, so take a few minutes to do that. All right. If you have never used Slido before, it's a really neat tool. There's a free version of it that you can embed into your slides. It allows you to really collect information, interact with the participants live. You can see the system is really putting in the answers for me as you're participating. In the top right corner, I can see how many people participated in the responses. I'm going to give you a few more minutes, but I can also see that sometimes you may put the answers in the chat. So yeah, somebody is actually saying, my son just told me about Gauss. Oh my gosh, there's so many. And a very good question. What does PO stand for? I have no idea. I just know that there's PO LBS assistant, but I actually never looked up what it stands for. But we will share links to that. And I know Jamie is going to talk about using this tool. So Jamie may be a bit more knowledgeable about that than I am. Oh, and Tracy is saying maybe it's not an initial, maybe it's just the name of it. What it does, it actually allows you to search through different chatbots to give you the answers as well. Okay, so 41 participants. I'm going to kind of pause because I want to move on to the actual guests. What I really wanted to see is what we are familiar with, what we are using. And based on your feedback, I can see ChatGPT is often one of the first ones as well. And then there's a free version and there's a paid version. The free version actually has a database that was collected a while ago, where the paid version actually still uses the newest information to be updated. but we're all learning and exploring how those tools work. So mainly, many of you are using ChatGPT. Some of you are using Canva and I put it there because Canva is a tool for images, presentations, flyers, but it also allows you to generate some graphics using their AI system built into the process, or even presentation slides. It will do that for you as well. So I'm glad to see that some of you are using that. Some of you are using Gemini and Google from Google. That's perfect. Copilot, and then there's other. So that may be Poe. If there's something that I actually haven't mentioned, feel free to put it in the chat. So we'll again collect that information from you. But as you can see, some of you are also not using AI at all. And thank you for saying that. We are learning about that. We are exploring it. It doesn't mean we all have to be full users of it yet, right? That's why we are meeting here today and discussing this topic. Okay, so now that we know who is where in terms of the actual tools, for those of you who haven't used it, I just really wanted to a very quick thing with them. So in terms of the tools and prompts. So prompts will be one of the things that we as AI users really need to master. And I think almost the courses now on how you can build really good prompts. But I figured I'm going to use a very basic example to start with. So let's assume that I want to know about Taylor Swift. Okay. And because I asked you how you would look for information, many of you said you would Google it. Very likely, I will go to a browser and then just say, where is Taylor Swift from? And Google will give me a list of different search results. And now I need to navigate and find this information. So instead of that, I went to ChatGPT and I put the question in, where is Taylor Swift from? So the system answered, Taylor Swift is from Reading, Pennsylvania. She grew up there before moving to Nashville to pursue her music career. Great. So now I'm getting the responses from the chatbot, which is the ChatGPT that I'm using. So as I'm looking at the answer, I'm thinking, well, how old was she when she moved to Nashville? If I was using Google, I will do the full new search to find this information. Here, I'm just adding my question to the first prompt I asked. So now the system says she moved when she was 14 years old and she relocated with her family. So now I'm really curious, who moved with her? So now the system tells me, okay, she moved with the entire family, her parents and her younger brother moved with her, and even gives me the name Austin for the brother. So you can see the system is now giving me a lot of information. So a very quick example of how a very basic question or questions can be used to gather information. But rather than me going to Google and navigating through 4 or 5 results, I'm actually given the answers by the system. So I continue within the same conversation. Now I'm asking the system or ChatGPT to tell me, okay, I want to create a paragraph summarizing Taylor Swift's career. I'm not going and browsing different websites. Now ChatGPT gives me a paragraph about Taylor Swift. And that's where we are starting to see the power of ChatGPT, because now it's building things for us. It's creating content for us from different sources. Okay. And finally, still within the same system, still within the same chat, I figured I'm going to ask, what is the secret sauce to Taylor Swift's success? Very simple question. And the ChatGPT not only gives me some answers, but even gives me different layouts and asks me now, as I'm talking to you, which answer is easier for you to navigate through or read? And on the left, you can see it's asking me, do you prefer the bulleted form in a way, or on the right, a paragraph? So now I'm interacting with this chatbot, almost like an assistant, and it's helping me to get the information I need, teaching me, learning with me, and giving me the answers. Now, whenever you interact with your chatbots, it's important to remember that this is AI machine that's using data to give me the answers. Depending on the data it uses, that information may not be correct. So I always want to go back and check my sources. Some of them are very clear and easy to find, but sometimes it's really good to just kind of check the information. And I think as a teacher or instructor, you will be telling that to your learners as well. And then AI hallucinations, which is system making things up. It's a neat, interesting vocabulary to learn about. That's something that we may see as well. So basically, AI will make up the answers. It's not going to be true. So be mindful of that. Also, as a user of a chatbot, I need to be mindful that I actually still make decisions. Do I agree with the answers? Do they make sense? Do I need more information? Is it written in the level that I understand? Do I have the skills to make those decisions? And then as you use AI in school at work, you also want to make sure that you know how to reference AI material, whether it's pictures or content. Very often in school settings, there will be teachers teaching how to reference AI generated resources. Not as common maybe in LBS, but it's something we may want to strive for as well. Okay, so the last two slides before we jump into talking with our guests about how they use I figured, okay, I know how ChatGPT works. I use it for a very basic information about Taylor Swift. But what if I really wanted to know more and actually ask more complicated questions? So this time I went to Copilot, which is from Microsoft, and I said, what should I know about AI when teaching adult literacy learners? And the system gave me answers. It's always unbelievable how quickly it gives you the answers. And I took the screen captures on the slide. I know it's a bit busy, but you can see not only it gave me the answers, it gave me the benefits, it gave me drawbacks and challenges, and then also some tips on what I may want to cover, which is understanding the AI basics, the ethical use of AI, and continuous learning because AI is evolving. So you can see that even as a regular user, for some information that I'm just working on, it can be beneficial and useful. And I always think about AI as an assistant that's actually helping us to gather information. Below, you also see I'm referencing AI, and there's a specific format that we want to use. So it's usually the owner, the year, the platform you have used, and then actual link that you may want to provide. Some others actually even ask you what was the question or prompt you put in to get those answers. So as we are learning and exploring all this, final one, Gemini, that was a Google tool. And I just was very, very basic with that very simple question. I need 5 questions to lead a discussion about budgeting. So math, numeracy, resources. The system popped up all the questions for me. And then I just went in and I said, okay, I like this, but can you make the questions simpler? So you will see that I went from 5 questions that were at least 2 lines in length to 4 or 5 words in my questions. And then again, as somebody who may be teaching or creating the questions for the class, I can come in and adjust them. So again, that assistant idea, that support idea, but there's more. And of course, that means what does AI mean in LBS? That was a very quick overview for those of you who may not have tried AI before. But really what we want to get into is into the gist of things. How are people using it? What are they using it for? So without further ado, I'm just going to jump in and introduce you to Sarah. Sarah is actually one of our guests. We send the questions to all of our guests, asking them just to introduce themselves, tell us why they decide to use the AI, what works, what doesn't work, and to share some tips with us. So Sarah will be our first guest, and I know Sarah wants to take over and use her own slides and navigate through them. So give us a second. We are just going to switch. Sarah, I'm going to stop sharing so you can start sharing as well.
Sounds good.
Perfect. And now I'm going to catch up on the chat in the meantime.
All right. So, hello, everyone. It's so good to see everybody. We've somewhat 69 people who are online right now, excited to use AI technology. So this is really, really great. I know that sometimes as educators, we can be a little scared about this stuff, but this is the future and this is the direction that things are going in. And we need to stay up to date with what is going on and what our learners are being exposed to on a daily basis. So like I said, my name is Sarah King. I work for Northern College at the Moosonee campus. I also teach at our access centers in Moose Factory, Fort Albany, Kasheshawan, and Attawapiskat. If you ever need to get a hold of me or you have questions or want me to explain something further, then my email address is provided on screen. And if you didn't get a chance to write that down, just reach out to Monica and she'll be able to connect you with me. So just to put things in a little bit of perspective of where I am located, here we have a wonderful picture of Ontario, and we've got our inner city Toronto area here, and this is where our campus is. So our campus, and then we have access centers in Moose Factory, Fort Albany, Kasheshawan is right here, and then Attawapiskat. So in these communities, they are First Nation communities, and we have, limited access to various things. It's fly-in communities. For Moosonee, you can get there through a train. So here's a closer look on this side of the screen where everything is located. So Moose Factory, Moosonee, Port Albany, Cache, and Attawapiskat. So I think it's best to show by example, and I can bring up now ChatGPT, which is going to be really my main focus, where I can show you guys how I use it in the classroom and out of the classroom. So tell me about Moosonee. You type your question into ChatGPT, and it's going to grab all of the information from the internet very quickly and put it into reasonable chunks for you. You can stop it and ask it to simplify. Whoop, spell simplify right. And it will condense the information in a simpler way. You can ask it to rephrase something. You can ask to put it in only bullet points. You can tell it, reword it as if I am in grade 6. And it will actually take the words and bring down the level to a more simple LBS level for you. So this is a really good first tip from me, is in ChatGPT, you can get it to edit complex material and bring it down to a lower LBS level. Simply, quickly, without you having to reword it or spend significant amounts of time. So we can see here now, and if I were to bring it into Microsoft Word and check the reading score on it, it's going to be around the grade 6 level. So it has condensed in massive amounts of information and simplified it to a lower, more appropriate LBS level. So there is a first example. Now, as soon as AI technology started coming out a few years ago, I dabbled. I am incredibly passionate about digital technology and sharing that with people to show how it can make changes or assist you in your day-to-day life. So for me, the novelty and the newness of technology gets me really excited, and I want to dabble in it and see how I can incorporate it into my practice. Also, something I find hugely important and something that I'm going to stress a lot is that it helps to break down barriers in access to certain types of knowledge and understanding. So what I'm talking about with this, I will show a little bit later on in terms of writing complaint letters as an LBS activity. I also want to spark creativity and lead inquiry with my students to go that one step further, for them to look at the technology I'm presenting to them and go, huh, wow, that's really cool. I want to show my kids. Or, huh, that's super awesome. Now that's going to help me in this part of my life. That to me is so, so meaningful going forward. So let's have a little look at what I've done with AI technology in the last year, which there's been a lot, so I've really narrowed it down. So over the summertime at our college and our access centers, we ran it's like a teacher assistant program. It's called Tutor Escort. So we ran Tutor Escort training, and it was to help employees of the local schools, local elementary schools, work with children who have additional needs. So some of the activities that I was doing with our students was helping to engage with children. So creative writing, showing them what they can do with children in the schools. So bringing up Canva, with its AI image generator, we were able to bring out prompts and come up with funny images where we had elephants using computers, we had cats who were eating toast with rainbows behind them. And to show the students that you could take this into the schools, and as a class activity with your child that you work with, you're able to generate almost anything by just typing in a few prompts into Canva and bringing up any image. So in the actual class itself, I got the students to shout out, hey, give me an animal. All right, a beaver. Super. Right, what is this beaver doing? It's driving a car. Cool, beaver driving car. Right, what else is it doing? It's honking angrily at a moose in the road. So using these prompts, we're able to create an interesting, engaging, and also utilizing the newest technology to share with students that they would be helping to support in schools in September. So it's able to create almost anything. And that's really cool. And yes, of course, there's issues with numbers of fingers on things. And if honestly, if you look really, really closely, some of these images, there's things wrong with them. Like here, we have some sort of semblance of a cup with pencils in it. And then look at the skin on this elephant that doesn't look right. And it's kind of mashed in with a suit. But do you know what? That stuff doesn't really matter. It really, really doesn't matter. What is interesting is that the students are engaged. Here we have, it was a prompt. The prompt was an elephant getting IT tech support from a mouse. So that was the prompt. And this is what AI in Canva generated. And yes, it's all sorts of things wrong, but it's cool nonetheless. And you can use that to explore a little bit further with the students and prompt them to write something about this image. And it's completely an original image. So next leads back to what I was talking about, is that it breaks down barriers. Is traditionally, younger people and my learners who are firstly Indigenous, they are struggling with being advocates for themselves. And we know that that's a very common thing across all, like around lower LBS level 1, low LBS level 2 sort of learners, is that they struggle to advocate for themselves in a way that gets noticed. So, cool thing that ChatGPT can do is it can express your feelings in a complaint letter. It's quick, it's easy. And in doing so, the students are able to express themselves in a letter of complaint, send that off, rather than mulling over an hour to 2 hours a letter of complaint expressing a negative experience they've had. So let's bring this up. And this is a real example I did that I did the other day. So let's start with a new prompt. Okay, write me a complaint letter to Boston Pizza about some wings I had that were rubbery and gross. Actually, I'm going to leave that in there. You don't need to spell check yourself with ChatGPT. It can pretty much understand what you're getting at. So here we have a spelling error here. Obviously, I haven't capitalized Boston Pizza, but here we go. Let's see what generates. Oh, ChatGPT is a little slow right now. So loading times will vary depending on how many people are using ChatGPT. I hear that if you use the paid version, it's a lot faster and it's instant, but I'm okay with waiting a few seconds. Right. So well, actually, I did have poor quality wings at Boston Pizza, so this is a reality. Here we have our complaint letter. I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to bring to your attention an issue I recently experienced. I ordered a serving of wings. I was excited to try it based on past experiences. However, I was extremely disappointed with the quality. The wings I received were rubbery and lacked the fresh, flavorful texture I've come to expect from Boston Pizza. Uh, I've hit my limit for today right now. So it refreshes. All right, so here I have generated a complaint letter. Now, think of the many negative experiences, well, hopefully not, the many negative experiences you've had in your life and the times where you're like, I really need to tell the business about this because that really sucked. I paid good money and I didn't get the product I expected. But I don't want to sit here writing for half an hour, a complaint letter. So I'm showing this to students as a tool to help express what is already on their minds. So if we go back to, well, what screen am I in? This one here. That so many times these experiences go unnoticed and people just kind of shove it under the carpet and they go, it doesn't really matter. My feelings don't matter in this. But we all know how much better we feel if we get this off our chest. We've written the complaint letter, we feel better, and maybe we might get some sort of exchange coming back at us saying, oh, I'm sorry, here's a free voucher. So this is a self-confidence booster for a lot of students, is to know that it takes the pressure off of them writing this complaint letter if ChatGPT is helping them structure it. Now, there's going to be a lot of you out there who may be a little uncomfortable with this, going, oh, but it's making them lazy writers. And I'm saying, no, it's an assistant. AI technology is an assistant. It is considered assistive technology. And you, therefore, you yourself and the student are the manager. You are the manager of this assistant. So therefore you will check. So you're going to read the letter, read it. You're going to correct it. So you're going to change out the address, the recipient. You're going to change who it's to, and you might potentially change some of the details that are in it. So you are correcting and then utilizing it. You are sending it, getting that off your to-do list, making you feel better that, hey, I actually stood up for myself in the best way I know how. So just because AI wrote it does not make our feelings less valid. It just gives us a very quicker and easier way, and it increases the likelihood that we are able to advocate for ourselves, or the students are able to advocate for themselves about a negative experience they've had. So of course, there is, for all of our OALCF people, there are tons of examples around this. There are tons of, milestones. There is a write an email milestone that's out there, and you can help the learner move in that direction with the AI technology to help boost their ability to be able to write these things and put their ideas down on paper and see and head in that direction. So my little alarm has gone off saying that I'm hogging all of the time. I'm going to flip forward to the next part, which is about using AI outside of the classroom. So here on screen, you can see posters that have, these ones haven't entirely been generated by AI, but what has been added by AI is the marketing wordage that is included in the poster itself. So also, if we have a look over here, up on Facebook here, on ChatGPT, you can ask it to create a Facebook post that includes things like emojis. So once again, we're teaching the majority of the time in our classes, and marketing isn't necessarily on our skills list. So ChatGPT will help create marketing advertisements for you to be able to put on Facebook. I will show you an example of this. So here we have ChatGPT. I'm gonna clear my annotations. ChatGPT. We are doing a targeted training workshop in the next little while around helping to support lower LBS levels to be able to pass their G1 written test. I can simply just type in what I want, so create a Facebook ad and include emojis for this. So I've copied and pasted what I've put into Canva, and ChatGPT will spit out all of these wonderful emojis. It will reword things, once again, putting wonderful emojis, and also hashtags, because who has the time to write those? So that's been hugely beneficial in our marketing for the Northern College LBS program. It's really, really helped support it. Back down here. So obviously, AI technology is still growing, and over the next few years, it's still going to continue to grow. AI technology can help generate unique images, but some of them are going to look a little odd because the AI technology is only as good as the information that is put into it. So here we have another example. And another example, which is a little bit better. This is using Adobe Firefly, but there's still some inconsistencies that are there. And then lastly, look at that. It looks good up until the point where you have to look at it a little bit closer. Oh, creepy. So my top tips for using ChatGPT is to create an account, log in so that your activity is saved automatically. Now you may have seen a little message pop up at the bottom saying that I've used my allocated amount for today. And that sometimes does happen, but I'm not using it to the point where it becomes problematic. So I've only ever run out of ChatGPT generations twice in my 2 years of using it. I do suggest to use the please shorten, simplify, write this as if I'm an expert marketer. So that's also a really good prompt that will help change the words to make it more snazzy. That's the only way to put it. Is because I'm not a marketer. I was not trained in marketing, but ChatGPT will take my text and then make it sound a little bit more appealing to the general public. Also, the prompt, rewrite this as if I am in grade 6, grade 12. You might be able to try LBS level 2 and see where that gets you. I haven't tried it yet. I've stuck to like grade levels, but those are my suggestions for using ChatGPT. All right. So thank you very much. I'm going to pass it back over to Monica. Sorry, I went a little bit over time.
I know it's all good, Sarah. Thank you so much. I know there's a few comments and feedback in the chat. I think one of the questions was citing, let's say you are doing the work with ChatGPT and it's for schoolwork, so the students are doing some of that. Would they have to reference or mention that they generated the images and things like that through ChatGPT? Would you ask them to do that, or just because it's part of the class they already know and you don't need to do that?
I think like I'm using it more in activities, like fun activities in class to keep engagement up. So it's nothing really serious and nothing really worth marks, you know? So it takes away that pressure to have to cite things officially like that. Like I want to show them the technology, but it's not as serious as needing to reference it at this point in time.
Okay. Okay. And it will depend on the setting, of course. So, we are hearing that students are using the technology, whether it is, to write the reports, paragraphs, resumes very often. They are using it whether they ask us or not. Like we can't really stop them. So you will hear from another guest and their perspective on that as well. But I know some of the chat messages, Sarah is actually saying, I agree that AI can help new LBS learners express themselves more. However, I believe that using tools like ChatGPT should be accompanied by specialized training. This training would guide learners on how to fully leverage AI for their development and learning. And I'm sure there's so much that actually happens at the same time. But so Sarah, thank you for voicing that for us as well. And then Wendy is responding as well. So there's a lot to discuss, and there's a lot of creativity, things to know, things to be aware of. There's bias, there the ethical aspects of some of that as well. And I know, Sarah, you touched on that, so I really appreciate that. So Krista is asking, have you developed any policies and procedures around using AI? And Sarah, we had a bit of conversation. Do you want to answer that?
Um, as an employee of Northern College, I am to direct you to the Northern College website, which has our AI policies on display. But really, like I mentioned before, we're using it in the capacity to make lessons fun. Nothing really is ever relying on this. So I wouldn't say that I've come up with like a little sub policy about only using it in class for these fun activities. I haven't seen a need for it yet, but I can guarantee you that at least, well, two people in my class, every time I talk about AI and use it, I guarantee you two people in the next assignment will be using ChatGPT to make their assignment. And yes, I go through academic integrity. I go through all of those policies with them, and there's still always two people who do it every time.
Yeah, yeah. And again, that's another topic that we may want to address. We actually will have another showcase or PD training to discuss some of those topics as well. So thank you so much, Sarah. I'm going to move to Jamie, who is our next presenter. But any questions for Sarah, please put them in the chat. You can address Sarah directly in the chat as well, or we can collect them. And then hopefully, Sarah, you can stick around if there's anything for later on when we may be able to ask you. But if you need to go, we totally get it. And then we'll just collect them and answer separately. So thank you, Sarah, for sharing with us. And then actually those examples are very handy. Again, many of you are just starting or actually advancedly using AI. So it's just trying to kind of understand and share, what could be very helpful for somebody else. Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. So Jamie, Shannon, I'm just very quickly going to switch over. I know, Sarah, you stopped sharing, so I will just share the slides for Jamie. And Jamie, can you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you, Monica. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. I'm going to add you to the
Great.
spotlight, so hopefully everybody can see Jamie up
Hello.
front.
Yeah, and
Perfect.
up front, I'll tell you right now that although I am not literally in the Mexican Caribbean, emotionally I am. Spiritually I am. All right, so today I want to briefly talk about using ChatGPT and other AI or large language model tools with learners. Um, yeah, and as you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we don't necessarily use ChatGPT that much. It seems to be the aspirin, the Q-tip, the Vaseline of AI tools or large language model tools. But as you mentioned, we are using tools like Poe quite extensively, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But um, I want to talk about how we're using AI tools, LLM tools with learners to help them do research, answer questions, solve problems, and get their work done ethically, efficiently, and with some accuracy. So just very briefly, my name is Jamie Hosking. I'm an instructor with Community Learning Alternatives. We're a community-based LBS program with on or in-person sites in Belleville, Trenton, and Madoff. We also offer remote support to learners throughout Central Hastings. Our agency supports those in the Anglophone stream with goals in employment, apprenticeship, secondary school, post-secondary, and independence. Our learners are all age 18 plus, but lately we've been seeing a big increase in younger learners, ages 18 to 25, and older learners, coming out of retirement, 60 plus. So, we see a wide range of learners coming to us. Now, Monica, if you can go to the next slide, please. Many CLA staff decided to explore using LLM and AI tools with our day-to-day operations here at CLA. after attending AlphaPlus's training on AI to create and manage learning activities. This training really highlighted the potential of AI in enhancing lesson planning and learner engagement. Our major takeaway from using LLM tools is that it can help us quickly with completing many of the time-consuming administrative tasks that so many of us that we have to do every day, and we can focus our time in the classroom and provide in-person support instead of doing some of this mundane stuff. And I'm getting thumbs up already for that. Yeah, yeah, amen to that. Eh? So examples of how we can use some of these tools and how we have used, correct, and how we have used these tools in the past with some of the things that we do. Um, some administrative tasks, like writing a synopsis of learning activities or group activities that are particularly articulated in the OALCF for our learner files and for ministry reporting. If we all love to do that, right? Creating materials for learning activities, just straight up. It's great for ideation and coming up with these activities. We've used it for adjusting reading levels. This is a big one for us. So we can get really appropriate audience engagement by making sure that reading level is at the right level for the learner. We've used it for creating reading activities on specific topics at, of course, varying skill levels. We are using Poe.com in particular. Poe is like an aggregator or a DJ of different AI tools. It's free to use, and it uses ChatGPT 4.0 as well as Gemini. It uses Claude 3. It uses Flux, which is a new image generator. So you can pick and choose from all of these different AI tools, these LLM tools, all in one app, and we found it very useful for that. Other things we've done, we've used LLM tools to clarify and simplify assignments for learners, or to clarify the material that we use for facilitation. Some of the curriculum support we've used, or we've used it for, includes offering tailored activities and questions for neurodivergent or struggling learners. Many of our learners have self-identified some of the learning challenges that they might have, whether it be things like forms of dyslexia or ADHD. And we can use that information to make sure that the learning materials are tailored for those particular aspects. We've also used it for providing alternative approaches based on individual needs, learning styles, learning barriers, etc. We've used it to create reading activities, like I mentioned, on specific topics, and generating vocabulary words with those activities for various professions. Many professions have particular verbs they use, particular terms they use, and AI can help us come up with lists for those. For articulating materials for the OALCF, we've used it to help identify the reading, writing, or numeracy levels of a particular piece of material. We've used it for creating materials and data groups for digital and numeracy lessons. And we've used it for adjusting reading levels for different audiences, whether it be for learners or for our community partners. This would be a great use for marketing and promotion materials, right? This point really helps us when we have small groups as well, interested in the same subject, but they're all at different OALCF levels. And then, as I mentioned with marketing, we can use these tools for networking, for offering suggestions for relevant information, share with different audiences. We found further specification after initial responses, and it was useful for adding questions or asking additional questions. We've used it for streamlining information for speaking engagement, like this one. We've used it for identifying key points when we really have limited time and we really need to get an output right away. And also for creating text for social media posts, for writing ad copy. And we can use that for targeting specific audiences, like I mentioned before. The next slide, please. Oh no, this slide will stay. So some examples that we've actually used this for. We've got some lesson plan systems. So we've used it to suggest activities and resources for specific goals and specific levels. We've used this to adapt some content. We can easily adjust reading levels and or the content to change the complexity of it based on the learner's needs. We've seen lots of reading assignments that students and learners have received from outside courses, courses from the local school board. And to be frank, some of them have been quite dated, and we can use an AI tool to change or summarize or to clarify some of this material for the learner, so it's at an appropriate reading level for them. We've also used it just to generate resources from scratch. I've been kind of dancing around this. We talked about using existing material and having AI edit and change it for us. But yes, of course, we can use it to create things like quizzes, vocabulary lists, any supplementary material we might need, especially for diverse subjects where it might be a little challenging to find learning material in a particular sector. And of course, for streamlining communication. We can draft emails. I do this a lot. You use it for draft emails, announcements, social media posts, any kind of communication that you might want to answer in a positive and friendly way. It can often write answers that better that you or I could write. We never use this output per se as is. We always edit and change and rewrite, so it's in our voice and in our language. Less is more is a big rule that I have, so I'll trim things down and cut out a lot of the flowery verbiage that sometimes AI might use. Some examples now for learning it, for using it with learners. Obviously, ideas for writing and research. AI can help learners get an overview of a particular topic. We've had learners who are doing things about sustainable tourism and how tourism can affect the environment, but they're not quite sure how that works. We can use AI to help them quickly learn about sustainability and how it affects global warming. We can also use AI to support with real life issues. This is a really effective and useful way to use AI. You could use this to include things like how to troubleshoot a broken printer. That's really practical, right? Nobody wants to fix those things, and they're practically impossible sometimes. So you can ask AI for questions about your exact model. You can use it to better understand questions that should be asked of an expert, like a doctor or another professional. And you might be unsure about what to ask. You could say, "Hey, create a bunch of questions that I need to ask my plumber, or my landlord, or the cable guy when he shows up." Another way to use it could be supporting with lesson content and with learning differences. You can offer various formats, text, audio. You can have a visual display. You can adapt a lesson with a learner to their visual style or their learning style. You can use it to clarify writing, particularly in literature and poetry. Some nuances some learners will read and they won't pick up on, inference as easily as others might. So, using AI to clarify some writing can be very useful. And finally, helping with self-review. AI can be a great tutor and a great reviewer if given the proper prompts. And the more detail you add to a prompt, the better. You can ask AI to assume a coach or a tutor persona in a specific subject at a specific level. And then AI can help with a learner to evaluate the work they've done and to better understand areas that they can clarify or focus on within their own writing to improve it. All right, the next slide, please. Okay, so let's wrap up with some quick takeaways, some things that we can talk about here, some tips and takeaways. First, let's talk about tailoring AI outputs. It's a whole new career these days. If you haven't heard of prompt engineering, this is where all the marketing copywriters and the advertising copywriters are shifting the focus now that AI is taking their job. So they're coming up with prompt engineer now as a new career. So tailoring your AI output is critically important to getting quality output. So by using AI to customize content for specific learners' needs, we can significantly boost engagement and comprehension of that material with a specific learner. And this personalized approach helps learners connect with the material more effectively. We have more of those light bulb moments when they understand the material especially when the material is a little dated and they might not relate to it as easily. Next, it's crucial to focus on critical engagement. AI can generate valuable content for sure, but we always have to be careful about evaluating how accurate it is. AI is very confident whether what they're giving you is accurate or not, whether it's truthful or not. It's confident in its output. I did notice though now that Gemini is actually not as confident, and it's actually saying, you know what, some possibilities might be. As an example, I asked Google Gemini where Poe.com got its name while we were chatting here earlier. And the output it got wasn't like it absolutely got its name from Edgar Allan Poe. No doubt. No, it didn't say that. It said some possibilities might be a reference to Edgar Allan Poe or a few other ones, but it wasn't sure. And I was glad to see that because so many outputs that AI can give us are written with certainty. And a learner who might not have as much experience firsthand with these tools might confuse certainty with accuracy. We also have the opportunity to leverage resource utilization. So these tools, like Poe.com in particular, can assist in generating specific learning activities and assessments for us on the LBS end. And this not only saves us a lot of time, but it also enhances our lesson planning. And it allows us to focus more on delivering quality instruction and less on having to worry about the variety of tools and resources that we have. And finally, remembering that tools like Poe.com and other AI tools can even help create talking points for presentations. It's great. We used it for this presentation right here. We have lots of different CLI staff members contributing great information, examples, and material. But then how do we amalgamate and incorporate all that material into a presentation? Well, we let Poe do it for us. It's not generating new information. It's taking the existing information that we provided it and reformatting it and creating new output based on existing input. And so by integrating these types of LLM tools really with some thought, we can create richer, more effective learning environments for our adult learners. That's all I have, really. A lot of talking there. But that's how we tend to be using these tools. We've noticed that given to their own devices, AI can be challenging with learners. So we try and work with them side by side. We try to use it before the learner even knows we're using an AI tool to generate engaging material and engaging lessons for them. And
This
that's
is
it for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Jamie. This is really nice summary of how you use it in the program, how you use it with the learners. I know in the chat, Shannon is also mentioning how she wasn't very keen on the AI, but now she's using it a bit more. With Poe, I know you mentioned Poe.com, but there's also the LBS assistant, Poe LBS assistant. Are you using both? Are you kind of trying both?
Yes, absolutely we are. These are tools that we really need to leverage to see what they can do for us, to see where they're certainly where their limitations. But it's been incredibly useful for us to create engaging lesson plans and learning material, something unique, something the learners haven't seen on a regular basis. And it's been extremely helpful. In particular, Poe, because it's, like I said, it's like an aggregator of all of these tools combined into one.
Perfect. And then just to add a bit to that, so the Poe LBS assistant is Literacy Link South Central basically use Poe to create their own chatbot, and then submitted a lot of information, OELCF information, other resources to it, so that actually can source the data from that. So if you're trying to exploring Poe or the LBS assistant, they will be the ones to go to actually to learn more behind the scenes of how they set it up. But I'm really glad to see that different programs are using different tools and trying different tools, and then understanding and trying that it's pulling the information from different sources is very helpful as well. Thank you so much, Jamie. And then Shannon,
Thank you.
I'm not sure if Shannon, if you want to add or do anything else. I know there's lots of questions for you in the chat. Would you be interested in just kind of mentioning? I muted you, but I'll ask you to unmute if you want to say anything about some of the questions that are coming up for you.
I guess I would say that I probably was one of the most resistant people originally because I grew up with Skynet. Yeah, that was the thing, and I was feeling very nervous about it. So, and I also really felt like the only option for it was was to do the work for you, like in thinking of learners and doing the work for the learners. And now I've really come around to seeing how versatile and beneficial it can be for them to try different iterations and to look at doing things like Jamie mentioned. I want it to be kind of positive or pleasant, or I want this to be maybe even stern, who knows, right? You never know what you want it to be. For me, it's, I use it a lot for my own purposes. I don't work with learners that much anymore, but I have found the Poe LBS Assistant whenever I have needed to be just absolutely fantastic. You can go in and say, I have an LBS level 2 learner and they want to work as a restaurant manager, and we need some prompts to discuss troubleshooting and handling complaints, and it makes stuff up. And you can add more. You can create data. I want to have some data so someone could do Excel practice entering data into a form or any. The sky's the limit, really. But I really do love that the LBS Assistant, you can enter the LBS competency and level, and it just does it for you. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And we always have to remember, the bias, the ethics, and everything behind that, and I think as we heard earlier, like, we still need to reassess, review the information, right? But it is that assistant. It gives us ideas that we can work with. I'm sure many of us, by the end of the day, sometimes there's nothing in our head. And then, that can actually give you some prompts or some ideas to kind of go ahead and develop new content as well. So I'm glad that
And
you're
Monica,
finding it
just
helpful.
really quickly before I go, it is vital if we are using this with learners. I mean, they're going to see the genie come out of the bottle and see what it can do. But we need to inform them responsibly on how to use these tools. They're very powerful. And it needs to be reiterated that the output that they give us isn't necessarily 100% accurate. So it's
Absolutely.
really just a tool to use to come up with that final answer, output, assignment, whatever it is they're using it for. It's also their responsibility. Just because it's a tool and it's giving you an answer, the final answer is yours and yours alone. So, there's a lot of responsibility to be had when using these tools. I've learned this in a couple of different ways with learners. So we have to tread carefully. Shannon's not wrong in her trepidation. She might feel like she's sheepish about it, but it's the more powerful these different digital tools get, the more cautious we have to be when dipping our toes in that water. But ultimately, once we learn how to use them effectively, they can be incredibly useful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm actually going to reverse it back to that Google discussion we had at the beginning. And when we got the search results, there were very often, 6, 10 of them. And we were skimming through it, trying to find the answer we were looking for. Here, the answer is given to us, but we also want to go back and make sure that actually it was the right answer picked from that search, right? It's kind of easier to think of it as that way as well. So thank you so much, Jamie and Shannon. And again, if anyone has more questions, please put them in the chat. Jamie, thank you. I know you may have to leave, but Shannon can stay behind if there are any more questions, or we can forward the questions to both of you afterwards. So thank you for taking the time. I'm going to admit to everyone that Jamie and Shannon were very kind and on a short notice agreed to join us and actually did all this presentation. So thank you double kindly for all your support. Perfect. So now we are going to jump to Jessa. And Jessa is our third guest that is joining us today. Just give us a few seconds to switch. Jessa, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to spotlight you so that way we can see you a bit better. And I'm going to remove spotlight from Jamie and Shannon. Here we go. Jessa, you're spotlighted. I'm on the first slide for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here with you all, and what you're sharing is really resonating with me. Sorry for the cavernous classroom I'm in right now. I don't know if you can hear me okay, but yeah, I'm really on the same page as all of you, where I feel Like this is something that can be really supportive for our learners. I've been working in the TDSB now for just 9 weeks, basically. But prior to that, I was doing LBS in various capacities, and I found a lot of resistance to, and same here, same where I am now, there's a lot of resistance among teachers to this tool. And I'm not sure if it's just like people feel threatened by it. There's like some concern around plagiarism and things like that. So I've been mostly teaching my students about how to use it in a way that isn't going to take away from their learning, but rather complement their learning. So what I do is I try to ask people what they're using it for. And a lot of my students here and also in other capacities have been all newcomers. And so they have like so much knowledge about technology. I'm learning so much from them as well. But what they're using it for is really interesting because it's more than just a summary tool. Like you say, it's like almost one student referred to it as like a librarian, like a pocket librarian. And I love that concept, right? Because it's like, it is pointing us in a direction, in a particular direction. And so it kind of sifts through some of the extra stuff that we might get on Google. We don't have to worry so much about advertisements. If you're just trying to get a very clear answer. And I even have students use ChatGPT like to cite it in their essays and things. If they used a particular prompt, I get them to put the prompt in the citation. And I've been learning lots from them about ways to include ChatGPT in the work that I'm doing. Like as a teacher, I don't have any prep time in my role. So I'm just like, this is saving me so much time and so much headache, I think. So yeah, I find it to be really, really helpful for making up test questions for myself. Obviously I have to edit all of those and make sure that, it fits within the context, but I don't have to rack my brain thinking about test questions. I also don't need to, if I'm using case studies, I can use ChatGPT to come up with case studies that are very specific to my students' needs, which has also been really supportive. And then I also, if my students are consenting, what I do is I get them to either do this themselves or I do it like with them for the first time if they've never used ChatGPT before. And I get them to write a first draft and then copy and paste the first draft into ChatGPT to ask for feedback. And so it saves me so much time for going over, giving feedback, and then I still give feedback in the final submission, but the first draft, they get like really good feedback that points them in a very specific direction. Oh, and I also get them to insert like the grading criteria and rubric or whatever information into the prompt. I noticed that somebody had posted that they use Goblin tools, and I also teach my class about Goblin tools, which I feel like it's a really good collection of tools. I don't know if that person is still here.
Can you tell us more about it? What is it and how does it work? Just briefly.
Yeah, briefly, there's a few different tools that it comes with. So one of them, oh, you're still here, Libby. Yes, okay. So we should chat about this because, yeah, I find it really, really helpful. The first one is a magic to-do list. So literally anything that is like a major project that you have where you don't know where to start, it will make a checklist for you. And it will break down each item. Yes. Oh, yes. Less spicy, angry emails. Yes. It will also change the tone for you. So this is a really good one for English language learners to understand the difference between different tones. So I have one exercise I do with my ESL class on that. Yes, the formalizer. Thank you. Okay, so a bunch of you already know Goblin tools and you're commenting, but yes, the formalizer will formalize based on what tone you would like it to have. So it'll formalize any text into formal, informal, spicier, sarcastic, whatever. And so you can kind of play around with the different tones and get a sense of how tone and vocabulary, word choice, and things like that influence the overall effect of the writing. Yeah, I find it to be really good for myself. I have ADHD, so I'm a really big picture thinker. And so for me, I'm just like, this is a game changer because I literally feel like I don't make sense most of the time, but then somehow I can put the things that are in my brain into ChatGPT and it makes sense of it. Like it organizes it in a way that allows other people to access my thinking and my understanding. And so then I share that with my students and they're like, whoa, because a lot of them have ADHD too. So they're like, whoa, it's a total game changer. So I really want us to think of it not as like a cheat tool, but more as like an assistant and something that can really help us to understand language better and to understand, like, to sift through the sort of like Google too much information, like you can go down a rabbit hole really easily on Google. So I think that it can help people who need that focus. It just points you right in the right direction. So I really appreciate that it exists and that we're adapting in the ways that we're adapting to it. Yes. And then I guess what I want to learn more about would be like just more of that. Like, how can we use it to improve our lives in every aspect of our lives, not just learning, but like, how can we use it to help us make a daily schedule? How can we use it to help us just like organize things in our lives that maybe feel too overwhelming or too, the magic to-do list where it breaks the items down in Goblin tools is like, for me, also a game changer because you don't always know all of the things that you need to do, or maybe you do, but like to think them through sometimes is like a lot of emotional energy. So it's really nice to be able to outsource that and then just go back and fill in what is missing, kind of. Yeah. I hope that explained everything that I was.
No, this is great. And like in the chat, I can see you're getting a lot of feedback from other participants who are using the tools in a similar way to you. And actually, from other perspectives, accessibility tools and support tools. So this is great to see that you're finding the tools useful, whether it's for you or for your learners. And then also I put the example, because I know you wanted to highlight the example from your student as they were working with the prompt and actually how that worked and helped the student as well.
Yeah, because so I have students, a lot of them struggle with writer's block, right? So where do you even start? So I just said, kind of think about the topic or the theme that you want to talk about. So it was freedom in this example, and then look at one aspect of that. So like the history of freedom, for example, and then think of a quote or something that could be like a hook that could be the anchor in someone's writing. And once you have that anchor, it's so much easier for the rest of it to flow, I find. So I really was like, when I saw how that changed everything for this one learner, because he was like really struggling, had writer's block, didn't know where to start. And then once he saw like ChatGPT made this hook that like really felt like it reached out to him and he was able to connect with it, that was the anchor that he needed to break the writer's block.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it would work for everyone, but I think it's worth a shot, right?
Well, it makes you think about, how we give assignments to the students or even, like a project to do. And then, we frame it in a specific way, give them a prompt or something to do, but it
Yeah.
may not, they may not connect with it. So being able to reword it or clarify it or simplify it in some way that now actually speaks to them is actually another great tip for other instructors and for learners as well. Like, if it doesn't speak to you, try to reword it or try to adjust it in some way to make it
Yeah.
slightly different. Yeah.
Sometimes you just need that metaphor that's going to fit with you. And so
Yes.
I think it's really good at, like as a large language model, it's really good at understanding metaphor and offering a lot of variety with metaphor. And so not every metaphor is going to work for everyone. So it's
Yeah.
like, what's the metaphor that's going to work for you? You might have to do a few iterations to get there, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the last slide for you, Jess, I'm just going to jump to that one. Empowering student learning.
Yes. I definitely think that instead of thinking about it as a tool um, to cheat or thinking about our job as teachers as like catching somebody using it or whatever, I think we should rethink it as a tool to bring out the power of our students. I really do. That was one of my students actually who said that. And I was like, yes, it is. It's a tool to bring out, it really is. It's like potentially very empowering. So that's kind of like my optimistic take on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we may not we have skipped through that, but there was a conversation you and I had earlier where you talked about how when you work with the students, when you're bringing in or discussions about AI, you do have a lot of discussions about understanding about the bias, about the ethics,
Yeah.
about, all that is part of that conversation. And I can see there's again a lot of feedback in the chat, and Sarah for YMCA is talking about, guiding the learners through this process as well. Like, we know that they may go off and do stuff on their own. But
Mm-hmm.
in the class, we want to kind of help them understand different aspects of what they're doing and how that may influence them as well.
Yes, I think they understand that it's a very powerful tool. And so I think with power comes responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think most of the time they are like I was like, oh, this and this happened when, this lawyer tried to use ChatGPT, but they are already aware of this. They already know about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, definitely worth talking about, but it's like for them, they already know about that.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Jessa. I really appreciate your feedback and sharing with us. I know you're still in the class, so we appreciating taking the
Yeah.
time. We all have so many different perspectives on this, and then you heard three today. I know some of you have your own perspectives or experiences with that. Before we move on to just wrap up the session, feel free to put the questions for Jessa in the chat. We'll make sure to address them. But I'm also mindful of the time and want to make sure that we have a chance to have a bit more conversation about this. And one of the, questions I have for you is really based on today. What prompts or how do you think you can use generative AI in your practice? Feel free to put anything you want, whether it's, your concerns that you have, things you may want to explore a bit more, ideas that maybe you picked up today that you haven't thought about before. One thing that I, even in a regular life, I have a nephew who is 20 something years old and he's looking for a job. And we were discussing with him, should you go to an agency or talk to someone to help you with your resume? And his immediate response was, why would I do that? AI is helping me with that.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a bit of a shocker because like, well, AI doesn't know anything or everything. But that's the attitude. And then one thing that, I think many of you brought up is that the students, the learners, they are what they are. And they may already be using AI. They are open to it. Different generations have different attitude about this as well. So that idea of, rather than blocking or checking and kind of resisting it, I think just like you put it, resisting it, how can we help? How can we make them more aware? How can be more supportive? How do we know more about the tools that they're using and what can help them as well? I think that's a very interesting way to look at that. And this is not to diminish the bias, the ethical aspects of it, or the tools themselves. There's so much This potentially could be a separate session about that, but I just want to make sure that we touch on that as well, because this is really kind of a beginning. We are trying to talk about this. We try different things, we explore different tools, but I hope that this is giving you all a bit of a platform to consider, hear from others, explore, and share as well. So I really appreciate that. And I can see some of you are leaving, but I can see the feedback coming in. So you're going to take a look at the different tools, using AI with students. One thing that I know our team talks a lot about is even discussing the AI policies, practices with the students directly, or building those practices and policies with the students in the class. So asking them how they want to go about that, including them in the decision and processes. The next session we have that's going to come up soon is about policies, ethics, and practices. It's a difficult topic. I'm not going to lie to you, but that's something we still kind of want to start and explore together with you. So that's going to be the topic in November. But it is something that we welcome your feedback and suggestions. And as we look through resources, documentation, examples of policies, some of them are very open and some of them are very strict. I came across something from a university, I think it's Ohio University, and they basically said only Copilot and only Adobe Firefly can be used at this university. So they really become very specific about, where others are very open. And I think that's something we also want to take into account. We talked about referencing, understanding how to reference AI tools, and also even as a team, not that having to be on the same page, but understanding where the concerns are and making sure that we approach them, we discuss them as a team, we grow as a team. I think it's very important as well. So I really thank you for giving us your feedback in the slider right now. Feel free to continue adding to it. I just want to let you know that there's a few resources we added to our slides. So if you have the slides, you will be able to find the links there. The AI Bytes is actually a e-bulletin that Literacy Link South Central is publishing in connection with Contact North. There's a lot of definitions and understanding, and they're building on the knowledge. So it's a good place to start if you're kind of starting with AI. We put the link to the Poe chatbot as well. But there's also, how to cite the references, some teaching strategies, and there's definitely many more than what we have included here. But again, this is just to kind of start. Even a bit of a lesson about AI from Khan Academy that you can find with the lessons, videos, and maybe even use with your learners if you want to. And a very quick reminder that we do have a lot of PD sessions coming up. So if you're joining us for training sessions, I think Jamie mentioned that he was attending some of our AI sessions. So we repeat some of those sessions. They're coming up. So on October 30th, which is just next week, we have the instructional videos and talking about using screen recordings and Edpuzzle to engage learners. And then after that, we have accessibility sessions where there's a bit of AI component in it. We have AI for educators. That's the PD training that Jamie mentioned that's being repeated in November. And then also creating AI policy with learners. That's a PD training separate from our showcase that's coming up in January. So we really want to engage and build with you. So if you're interested, consider joining us for those sessions. There's lots of content to explore. And of course, as always, we need your feedback. We want to know more. We want to engage with you. So Tracy is going to post a link to the feedback form so that you have a chance to give us your honest feedback about the session. What can we do next? What can we improve on? And again, we do have another showcase coming up on November 19th. And that one is about those policies, ethics, and practices. And then again, it doesn't mean we have all the answers. But it's something to have the conversations. And I think some of the conversations we had in the chat today will kind of transition into those conversations in November. So I really hope you can join us for that as well. Any additional questions? If anyone wants to speak up, say something before we wrap up for today, feel free to put it in the chat or just unmute and speak up.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Jessa.
Bye.
All right. I can see some of you are leaving, so feel free to do that. But again, if there's a chance for you to fill out the survey, I would really appreciate it. I know it's the end of the day for many of you, so you may be rushing to go out and and then, pick up kids or get home and start on dinner. We totally understand that. But if you want to stay behind and ask additional questions, or follow up on some of the things we discussed, we are here until you leave. Thank you so much. So much learning. So for those of you who stay behind, Shannon and Sarah and everybody else who got involved, I really again want to thank you so much for taking the time. You developed amazing information and resources. As we can see in the chat, some of us are already trying and using some of the tools. Some of us are just at the beginning. But I hope that we learn from each other. And Shannon, your engagement and your excitement about AI, I love that. I love that you were able to share that as well. And Sarah, oh my gosh, some of the information you shared, very clear, very easy to understand. And then I really love the idea that you both share the marketing pieces because, for so many of us developing social media flyers, messages, posts, can be overwhelming sometimes. So being able to utilize the tools for that, I think it's a great tip for those who may have multiple jobs, be a teacher, instructor, and doing social media on the side, right?
Absolutely. Like some of like the community agencies who are limited for funding, like yes, Northern College has a marketing team behind it, but you have to wait in a lineup and there's a queue for like 5 weeks to get marketing material done. And here I can just bam, bam, bam for our literacy and basic skills program just so easily.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Shannon, I know you, Jamie mentioned some of the marketing material, so I'm glad to see that you're also using that. Any tips or thoughts on that?
I don't do that aspect so much anymore myself, but I know that our couple of the people that do, Jamie and a couple of others, are using Canva and getting ideas from that really and effectively. If anybody follows our Facebook, you'll see that stuff on there. And for me, I often will, jot down my point form stuff and then stick it in and play around with different iterations of it to get what I'm looking for. So I find it really useful in that way.
Absolutely.
A lot faster than me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not sure if you have seen like in the chat, Alan, I don't see Alan anymore, so he may have left, but he even mentioned, that sometimes we take our own draft text that we write and we put it into one of the chatbots to sort of give us a bit of, review and then tips on, how we can improve what we wrote. So, it's taking its place in many different aspects of our lives and we can't ignore it. That's the thing. We can't ignore it. We can try to, set up guidelines around it, but we can't really ignore it.
The power is incredible. In another volunteer position, I asked ChatGPT to set up a database, how I would set up a database. Then I asked it to create a database and it did it. So I just had to download the file and then I asked it to create a user guide for it and it did that. It was amazing. I did that all during a meeting.
Perfect.
Crazy.
Perfect. Amazing. So one of the things, and I know we are wrapping up, so you may want to go, but if somebody still hasn't signed up for some of the PD sessions we have offered, especially around AI, I know that Tracy and Gillian, my colleagues from AlphaPlus, have done a lot of support. They even had sandboxes where they played and explored in AI in more detail, especially prompts. So that may be happening, or at least they may be able to offer some tips when that PD session is running again. But if not, feel free to reach out to them as well, or to any of us at AlphaPlus, and we'll be happy to share, support, or do anything and we can to be with you, to be there with you and move forward with this new big development that's happening, which is AI. So thank you so much. Big thank you to our interpreters and participants for coming in. I think we are going to wrap up to let them also move on to other initiatives. Big applause for all of you. Thank you again.